1 second. Alright everybody, hi, what's up? Hello, how are we doing? My coffee is spilling everywhere. Welcome to Coffee with Kacie. In true fashion, I am having coffee. It is 6:30 p.m. where I'm at currently, but cheers. Okay, so Ascension. This is the one everybody asks me about. This is the one that is very convoluted and involves a lot of other pieces, such as reincarnation, past lives, Akashic records, multi-dimensional universes, star seeds, aliens. This one kind of encompasses everything together. There are sort of steps we can take in understanding how Ascension works without kind of knowing all of the details of everything else. So what is Ascension, right? Ascension is basically the purpose of life. It's to move forward up through a dimensional existence with the idea that every level that you move up, you're closer to what I'm told is called the central sun. Now, touching on the central sun, you know, people ask me my religious beliefs and, you know, what about God and all of the spiritual talk that we have. You know, I used to be atheist, so I didn't believe in anything, certainly not God. And I take everything in the spiritual community kind of from that analytical standpoint, right? Questioning more than just believing. But essentially, if you look through all of the religions, right? Any sort of mythology, philosophy, everyone's trying to get to a heaven, right? A heaven of some sort. Nirvana, right? These are semantics. But for this topic in conversation today, you can think of the central sun as heaven. So the more that you ascend, the closer you are getting to the central sun, to home, to nirvana, to ultimate bliss, ultimate happiness, right? And so how do we do this? Why do we do this? I'm not going to claim to know everything there is to know about everything. There's an infinite amount of everything. And I just want you to wrap your mind around that. An infinite amount of everything. There's an infinite amount of dimensions, levels you can go, right? Infinite amount of universes, infinite amount of thoughts, realms of society, planets, universes. But what I've been told by my Arcturian and Andromedan family, and Jesus himself, I know, I said I wasn't religious. Tune in on the day we talk about religion, because Jesus is, in fact, a person, an entity, and one that does a lot of resonance and looks out for this particular realm and universe, galaxy. We refer to him as Sananda, as opposed to Jesus. Just as my name is not Kacie, it's Nebula. I'm gonna get back to the central sun. Why do we do this? I'm told the central sun is all that there is. Okay. It's a hard concept to wrap our mind around. It's a hard concept for me to wrap my mind around as well. But the central sun is all there is ever. And it's an energy. The first thing that we all need to understand in working with anything spiritually based is that everything is energy. We are energy, you know, our pets are energy, okay? The communication we have is energy. The music we listen to is energy. The crystals we hold have energy, okay? The food we eat has energy. Everything's energy. The central sun, or nirvana, is its everything. Oh, I don't know if I have any psychics watching me, but I can see and feel my fucking crown chakra like a little tube of energy connecting. So comment below if you guys can see it as well. It's freaking hot as hell. What does energy want to do typically, right? What does anything want to do? Anything. Look at anything. It typically wants to grow, transform, produce, right? Spread. Which is what our galaxy, our universe is doing, right? The Big Bang Theory. That is, in essence, correct. Okay, the central sun is growing outward, collecting more information, learning more things, right? You know what I just heard, and I don't want to say this because me personally, I'm so fucking freaked out by AI, but I did just channel, think of it as like an artificial intelligence. If there's nothing artificial about the central sun, but think of it as learning, growing, consuming, taking this experience and putting them together and learning from it so it can produce something else, right? So that's what this Big Bang is doing. The universe is doing. It's growing, it's thinking, it's consuming, it's knowing new things, right? And so how does it do that, right? Let's take it back, let's bring it back to us and who we are and how we work, right? Just humans on Earth, right? Every time you have a thought, or a choice to make, let's say, you're having these thoughts of the different possible ways that it could go, right? And why are you doing this? So you can gather data, so you can make up your mind about what the best choice is. If I go to place A for lunch versus place B, what's it gonna do to me? Is one gonna be better than the other? Last experience I had was this, you're creating or trying to decide for yourself. You're gathering information so you can produce something new, an outcome that you want, right? And so how the just stay with me for a second, how the multidimensional universe works is when you have these thoughts, they're going out, they're really happening. Every thought you have manifests, whether that's currently in your reality or not. Those thoughts are manifesting on different timelines. You did go to Chick-fil-A, and you did sit for 2 hours because their machine was down. Okay? You did go to McDonald's, and it was actually the best spicy chicken sandwich you ever fucking had. Those things did happen. Now, you took that information subconsciously from going to these other multidimensional universes and, timelines, and living through them and bringing that energy back. And you decide to go to McDonald's, and it wasn't the best spicy chicken sandwich you ever had, but it was in essence the better choice for you, right? You learned. You put your energy somewhere else. You put your energy into an imaginary way that this could go. Are you following me? To come up with an answer or a path or a solution or a way to be now in the present reality. This is what the central sun is doing. This is what the universe, God, everything is doing. It's sending pieces of itself, energy, out into different situations to live through experiences, learn lessons, collect data, and send it back to itself. In most religions you follow, we are all of one, right? We're all made of man. We're all made of God. God is within us all. Okay? That's very true. We are all part of the same nirvana, the same central sun. The central sun split itself off into little different souls to go live in different realms of existence, to ultimately come back to itself, to live in peace, to live in harmony, to live in bliss, right? Imagine if you knew everything about everything. Would you have stress? Would you have anxiety? Because even if you know the bad things, you also know the good things. You know how everything is just a cycle. Everything is a yin and yang, and you must have both good and bad to fully be at peace. That's what the central sun is doing. That's what you are. You are a piece of the central sun that is broken off and incarnated into a chosen realm of existence with chosen lessons to learn, to rise above them, to make the ultimate decision for a better, peaceful, more stress-free life, to eventually go back and have that. Because what the central sun wants to ask you, this feels crazy, I'm channeling the central sun right now. Like, take a deep breath. What the central sun wants to ask you is, how could you be fully grateful and fully in bliss if you don't know how to overcome the negative, the hardship, right? You will never experience a beautiful sunshine day that just fills your heart with warmth after you've been cold for so fucking long, and finally the sun is out bringing you life. You'll never experience that feeling if you have not been fucking cold. If you have not had the shittiest fucking winter of your life where you couldn't even step outside because it's ice everywhere, danger afoot, and now there it is, fucking 54 degrees, it's feeling beautiful, it's feeling great. You wouldn't experience that feeling if you hadn't experienced the negative. That's the point of Ascension. That is the reason you have the lessons that you have, is to learn how to overcome them, to learn that they are small importance, because what comes after hardship is abundance. And the more that you can understand that and work towards that and flow with that, the closer and closer and closer you get to nirvana, to heaven, to the central sun. That's what Ascension is doing. Okay? What else do you know about energy? Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It is what it is, right? That's what I said. The central sun, heaven, is all there is. It is. Okay. And it's deciding, you're deciding, okay, we're going to go to the third dimension. We're going to learn self-love. We're going to go to the sixth dimension. We're going to learn healing, right? And so how Ascension works, now that we understand why we're doing it, right, is the very first time it breaks off, you break off, and you go into a dimension, you start very low. Typically, the first dimension. And I want you to understand there's an infinite amount of dimensions in both directions. There are negative dimensions. There's a negative third dimension, okay? Because you have to have, one cannot exist without the other, okay? However, nobody starts there, and I'm not told too much about negative dimensions, quite honestly. What I am told about them is they are, fucking right side of my brain is starting to hurt too, which is the side that connects to very physical things. But I am told it's somewhat of like a, I keep hearing the word prison, but I don't want to use that because I'm not seeing it as a prison. It's we have to have both energies, right? So for those who are meant to be in an opposing energy, because there is no such thing as good or bad, that's a subjective thing. What I think is bad might not be the same thing that you think is bad, right? So there's truly, philosophically, no such thing as good and bad, right? I'm sure we can all agree murdering somebody is negative, but maybe someone else doesn't think that way, you know what I mean? So it's not, I don't want to say it's a prison, because those who chose to be there, right? But typically when we're incarnating from the central sun, we start about dimension 1. Now, in the first dimension, and remember, the lower you get in dimensions, the heavier and more physical things are. When you are just a gaseous being, you know, in heaven, you're just energy, there's no physicality to that, right? You can't feel things, which is a lot of the reason why the central sun breaks off to experience these things also, because when you incarnate in a physical dimension like the 3D, for example, we can experience things like sex, we can experience things like food, right? Not that other dimensions don't have this, but it's in a very different way. If you're a literal body of gas, can you consume a hamburger? No, you cannot. There's ways of having astral sex and stuff like that, but can you physically feel someone kiss you? No, you cannot. So those are also reasons that once you've ascended, you may come back to a lower dimension, but we'll get there. So in the first dimension, it's very, very heavy. It's one-dimensional. Okay, there's nothing to it. Think about art, like a drawing, like a 1D drawing, right? It's flat. There's nothing to it. All that there is on the first dimension is you. You as a soul. Basically, you break off from heaven and you go into solitary confinement. And that's where you learn who you are. Individualized from the central sun. Individualized from mass consciousness into your own consciousness now. Who are you? That's the first dimension. You are a physical being, not as we see ourselves now, but you're a physical being in the first dimension, because the lower you go, the more physical you become. There's not a lot of movement. You're not walking around. You don't have legs. There's nothing to even see. It's a flat dimension. You're there. And you do die. So if, in the first dimension, you don't come to these terms, you don't realize who you are, you're still thinking part of the mass consciousness and, oh my God, I'm stuck here, right? This is happening to me. I have no control over my life. I went from nirvana and now I'm in the first dimension. Fuck. And you die, you will circle right back into that first dimension to do it all over again, maybe with a different lesson, but ultimately the same lesson. Different experience, but ultimately the same lesson, which is to become aware. So that's reincarnation. You will continue to reincarnate in the dimension that you originally chose, or you came down from the central sun, until you learn your lesson. Then you graduate. They like to explain it to me as like a graduation system. I think it's just the easiest for everybody to understand when you put it in terms of like school. So that's essentially how incarnation starts, right? That's incarnating. And now you reincarnate until you learn that lesson, then you graduate. So, just like you do in school, right? What comes after first grade? Second grade. So now you're incarnating in the second, dimension. Now, here, I'm not going to go through every dimension, y'all, because there's an infinite amount, but I'll bring you up to speed on a few of them, okay? So in the second dimension, now it is you and another. So now that you are an aware being, and remember, every time, I was like, remember, as if you knew, but this is the thing, is you do, actually, and that's a funny segue, because I was going to say, now remember, every time you incarnate into a new dimension, or you just reincarnate into that dimension, you lose prior knowledge. And you might ask, Kacie, why would they just wipe me away if I'm supposed to ascend and be, believe in God and believe in the central sun? Why can't I just know about it? That way it makes life easier. Because that's not the lesson. That you can't just be given information. Imagine if you just came out of the womb as a freaking little gross little bloody baby speaking full-on Arcturian language, speaking light code. No, that's too much information at once, right? We all know that the psyche needs to be integrated in small pieces. Nobody likes straight up change. If a fucking Arcturian in the flesh walked up to you tomorrow, you would go to the fucking psych ward. But if you keep doing this and spiritually advancing a little bit and raising your consciousness, if you see a blue fucking alien walk through your door, you're gonna be like, hey, what's up? Been waiting for you. You know what I'm saying? So we don't remember, and it's a fail-safe. We do that on purpose, because otherwise you just come here and then, okay, boom, you move right up. You didn't learn anything. You know what I mean? It's to get through the hardships. It's to become aware. It's to realize that on the other side of the negative energy, there's positive energy. That in itself takes faith. So you really, in every dimension, in every incarnation, y'all, you're just remembering. Because you already know this information. You knew it in the first dimension. You knew you shot down here from the central sun. Put your ass in solitary confinement so you could learn your lesson, become aware, and move forward to the second dimension. You already knew that. It's just remembering it while you're in that dimension, right? So in the second dimension, now we've become aware. We know what our soul is here to do, right? That was, we ascended the first dimension, right? Now we're in the second. That's when it introduces another. So in the second dimension, this is, we want to immediately think this is like a relationship, another person, love or something. And it can be, because every dimension essentially has the same few core lessons, but it's experienced in different ways. So while I'm working on self-love and you're working on self-love, for me, it may be that I get cheated on a bunch by all of my romantic partners and I have to learn how to love myself. For you, it may be that you are the life of the party and everybody loves you, but you just don't feel like you're good enough. So it's an internal thing, right? So it manifests in different ways, but it's all essentially the same lesson, right? So in the second dimension, it could be a partner. It could be you and another person in a love relationship, right? It could be you and an idea, right? In that dimension, it's you and another thing. It's learning how to be aware and be an individualized conscious with another entity, because now we introduce the idea that you are a vibrational energy and everything is a vibrational energy. So if that energy is different from your own, it will affect you. Whether you are aware of it or not, being around energy, you absorb it. And other people being around your energy, they absorb it. So this dimension, second dimension, is teaching you how to be aware and be an individualized conscious when there's now another individualized conscious. And you're not a mass conscious anymore because you're in the second dimension, which are two individualized consciousnesses. Consciousnesses? What are you guys having me say? That need to learn how to exist together. Dimension 2 is learning how to exist with another. Okay, so we've learned our lessons. We've incarnated maybe 600, 700, 800 times in Dimension 2. Don't get cocky. You don't just have a couple of lifetimes and you're like, oh, no. No. We're talking about hundreds of lifetimes. Hundreds of incarnations within each dimension. And sometimes, if your ass don't wake up, thousands, my guy, in each infinite dimension. Wrap your mind around that. So now, we've graduated into third grade. The third dimension. Here we are on Earth. Earth is a third dimensional realm. It's 3D. I mean, again, think about art, right? 3D. The third dimension introduces society. It introduces mass thought. It introduces free will. Not that you didn't have free will in any other dimension, but the third dimension offers choices, right? So now that you know how to exist with another entity, now you're in a dimension where you're given choices, options. Do you want to be like that other energy? Do you want to be like your energy? Do you want to be like a higher energy? That's up to you, and that's unfortunately the hard fucking shit with Earth. There are so many influential energies going around in Earth. There's people telling you how to look, how to dress, what to buy, what to eat, how to be, what to say, think positive, work out every day, eat healthy, don't eat healthy, embrace your body. It's like there's so many entities influencing you. And so in the third dimension, we're typically learning self-love because we've understood how to exist with another entity, but now we're in a dimension where we're being bombarded by so much mass consciousness that we have to remember to stay individualized, right? We have to remain an individualized conscious that works with others. What I mean by that is, if you're constantly bombarded with, let's just make it one blanket statement, right? All the commercials, everything's telling you to eat fast food. Oh my God, it's so good. They make it look so delicious and juicy, and it's cheap too. You should eat the cheap food, right? But you have to stay individualized and say, what makes me feel good though? I'm being bombarded with this type of energy, but when it hits my soul, I don't feel good. I don't like my body when I eat a bunch of fast food. I physically don't feel good. I don't get my job done because I just want to sleep all day. So then we get into cognitive dissonance, right? Our soul knows that it wants to be this consciousness, this individual person that we decided we were in the first dimension. However, the actions we're taking are not of what we want to be. And so then we psychologically get depressed because we're allowing the other influences to come in, right? We know what we want to be, but we're not doing it. And we're not doing it because of the third dimensional pull, right, of other people's consciousness. That's why it's important for you to love yourself in the third dimension. You don't give a shit what anybody says about you, right? You put yourself first. That's essentially what the third dimension is. And quite honestly, I don't even think I knew that till just now. Jesus Christ. The third dimension is about self-love, self-healing, remaining true to your identity. I think that's why there's such a throat chakra crisis going on right now, because we're all taught to just sort of like mind your own business and get in line and get a good job and make the money so you can buy the house and stuff. And it's like, what if that's not what your soul wants? Because I tell you right now, it's not. Damn. You have to stay true to yourself, love yourself enough to do what you want to do, right? And loving yourself isn't just about loving your body, though that's a great place to start, y'all. I highly suggest looking at yourself in the mirror every day. By the way, mirrors are portals, and that's how we travel into different dimensions. So by you looking at yourself in a mirror, you are in fact looking at a different version of yourself. So give yourself a kiss. I tell you, it fucking works. Self-love, y'all. But it doesn't have to be that. Self-love could be taking a nap when everybody says you're not doing enough. You know what I mean? Or quitting your job and taking a fucking pay cut because you just want to be able to get off work at 4 every day to walk your dog. That's fucking self-love, yo. It's telling your fucking whiny ass kid no. Shit. I don't have kids, so. Self-love comes in so many different ways. And like I said before, it can manifest in different ways, but the lesson is generally the same. So, once you learn your lessons and you incarnate a whole bunch of times in the third dimension, you move up. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky, and I'm going to take you into the 6th, maybe touch a little bit on the 12th. But here's where it gets tricky with the dimensions, simply. The 4th dimension is a holding dimension. So, the 4th dimension is where you could say, quote-unquote, ghosts reside. So when we pass away, in every dimension, first dimension, everything, right? We go into the 4th. Also remember, things aren't linear. Everything is happening at once. Every timeline is happening at once. Things are going forwards, backwards, sideways, all ups and downs. There's no such thing as linear, but in the 3rd dimension, it helps sort of, in a 1D, 2D, 3D kind of existence, it makes sense. So you go from the 1st, you go to the 4th, you could jump to the 18th, you could come, you know what I mean? You pass away. There's no such thing as death. You go to the 4th dimension. The 4th dimension, I like to think of it as like a big movie theater, but where it's just you and your spirit guides. But so you go there and you see it's literally like a movie. I typically see it when I work with deceased souls as like a room. Typically like a window, a chair, and then like one of the walls is kind of like a movie. And so they're seeing the incarnation they just had. They're seeing incarnations they've had before. They're seeing the central sun, right? They see the light, and they're looking through, they're watching and saying, oh shit, when that thing happened, that was the moment I was supposed to take that leap of faith into. That was when I was supposed to quit my job. If I would have done that, if I would have quit my job and I would have loved myself, I could have ascended. But I didn't, so fuck. Now I gotta go back. Gotta do it again. Retry it. And then they go towards the light. And then they come back and incarnate again. And it doesn't always have to, there's multiple 3Ds, right? There's multiple Earths. Each dimension itself is also rising. That's kind of a higher concept. But like, for example, the 6th dimension, as we know it right now, was a 3rd dimensional society at one point. They've ascended. Now, the 4th dimension, you can get stuck in, okay? You can go into this room, you can go into this holding cell, if you will, although that sounds intense. Think of it, if you're religious, as like purgatory, right? It's the in-between. It's where I feel like, and I don't know shit about religion, but I feel like religion says it's like where you're judged. In a sense, yes, you're judging yourself. You're like, oh fuck, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, right? But sometimes you can get stuck there. You can get stuck on that memory, and the light, the central sun, becomes dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. You're stuck on a moment, right? You don't want to leave. Let's say you passed away, you left your wife, and you're in that 4th dimension and you're watching your wife. get stuck there. What's that movie with Robin Williams? It's like that. You get stuck in that dimension. Once you realize that, you know, oh, you're holding that person back, then the light comes in. Or then you have rescue mediums, which I am as well, where I go into that fourth dimension and I, you know, hey, sir, can you see me? Like, you're in the fourth dimension. Do you know where you are right now? And I bring them to the light. I think in a lot of religions, it talks about someone coming to take you to the light. That is very true. You can have past level, like, you know, if my grandma passes away or my grandpa is passed away, when I pass away, he might come and get me, hey, Kacie, here's the light, you know what I mean? So the fourth dimension is not actually one that we ascend through. It's one of reflection. There's a few different dimensions along the way that are, but closely related to kind of where we are, where we're incarnating. That's what the fourth dimension is. Okay? We do want to ascend from the third dimension to the fourth dimension, because if you ascend from the third to the fourth, there is potential for you to get stuck in that loop. And that's what we call like a haunting, right? Somebody that's stuck in the fourth dimension, kind of reliving that life over and over. And they can be conscious. It doesn't have to be a residual haunting, for those of you that watch ghost shows, where it's like, you know, a lady walking every time. It doesn't have to be like that, though it can be. They could be aware. They could be moving your stuff. They could be talking to you, whatever, but they're in the fourth dimension. But that's somebody who, you know, kind of ascended into the fourth. They're kind of trapped there. That can, I'm being told to tell you guys, that can happen if you incarnate so many times. They're not giving me a specific number, and you just aren't learning and aren't learning. You might get stuck in the fourth dimension. It's kind of like a Groundhog Day sequence is what I'm seeing. Okay, so we want to graduate from the third to the fifth. Now the fifth, you will be a lighter being. The higher we go, the lighter we become. The fifth dimension is about home, where we were introduced to a society in the third dimension. In this one, we're still trying to maintain our individuality, right? In the fifth dimension, we transcend individuality. We're getting closer to the central sun again. We're getting closer to that mass consciousness, right? Do you notice how each time we move up, we're introducing more and more people to go back to that one mass consciousness, right? And so in the fifth dimension, it really introduces the idea of needing community, needing to work together, feeling better about working with other people, right? So the third dimension is kind of confusing because we do want community, and in essence, our soul craves that. We want to work together. There's people that want to start being like a community and stuff. But that's really the people who are kind of ascending out of the third dimension that crave that sort of thing, because they're ascending to the fifth dimension. And in the fifth dimension, there's no such thing as money. That's a 3D concept. Because it keeps us tied to other beings, right? In the fifth dimension, everybody has a job, but it's one that they enjoy doing. And I know people are always like, well, Kacie, nobody wants to like fill out paperwork all day. And to which I say, au contraire, my whole life, I've fucking loved paper and pens. If my contribution could be that for 8 hours a day, I go help people fill out paperwork, and then everything else in my life is free food, free yoga, free music, free concerts, whatever, everything is free because I went and I contributed my love of fucking filling out paperwork with beautiful gel pens, my dude. Sign me the fuck up. Get me the fuck out of this third dimension, y'all. I need to go back to the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension is about home. And you will circle back. They have their problems just like 3D has their problems. You know what I mean? So you'll keep circling back if you can't figure out how to work with a community. Then you go into the sixth dimension, and this is about teaching, healing. So in the sixth dimension, which is where Arcturians reside, it's about traveling to other dimensions or telepathically communicating with other beings to teach them spirituality. Like the Arcturians came, they downloaded information into my brain, right, to help me. That's what a sixth dimensional being is doing. That's part of their ascension process, right? The Arcturians, the Pleiadians, all of these star seeds, they're ascending just like we are. They're just in a higher dimension than we are, right? So the sixth dimension, now you've worked with your community, you've transcended money, you've transcended need, you're an individual person who understands how to work with community, and now you're taking that out into other realms and you're teaching other people how to do it. And and you continue to incarnate, right? There's 7, 8, 9, dimension 10, 11. The one I want to talk about before we end today is the 12th dimension. This is the dimension that my soul currently is in and incarnating in. The 12th dimension is one where spirit guides come from. I just heard somebody say, like, oh, we're already at spirit guides, but we're only in 12. I thought you said there was an infinite amount of dimensions. There are. And there's things higher than spirit guides even. You know, like I certainly don't know, because I haven't ascended out of the 12th dimension yet. What I can tell you is in the 12th dimension, once you've, gained all of this spiritual wisdom, you have the ability to create your own universe. Just like this one, with all of the people in it and all of the souls incarnating and how it looks even and what you want your dimensions to be. Think of it as like a school project. Well, I want my third dimension's core value to be healing instead of self-love or whatever, right? You can create your own universe, which then allows other people to come in and use that framework to learn. You can be a spiritual teacher. So there's I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but I always hear it as the Melchizedek. You can call it a university. It's a place where, like a physical is a loose term, but where all starseeds, lots of different dimensions come to learn about others, right? So I've been there learning about other dimensions. I teach there as an alien. But it's also where your starseeds come from. They go through this 12-dimensional school, if you will, to shoot down into different dimensions. So these are starseeds, and that's for another topic, but starseeds are people that have already ascended. There's no need to come back to the third dimension because we've already learned our lessons of the third dimension, but we're coming back as a teacher, right, to help other people not get stuck in negative dimensions and fourth dimensions and stuff, holding dimensions, right? Or you can be a spirit guide. So a spirit guide is, and again, that's a topic for another day, but when the central sun shoots off and decides to learn and go through all these dimensional realms, it gets assigned one spirit guide. It gets assigned another piece of energy that's already done all that. You know what I mean? To help you. So my spirit guide's Joseph. He's higher than the 12th dimension. Because I'm in the 12th dimension, he's been with me for a very long time. Very long time. Literally since inception. But we all have a spirit guide to help us through that, because as you know, we come in and we forget everything, so we need someone to help us. The thing is that someone is telepathically communicating with you. Joseph is so high dimensionally that he literally cannot incarnate at the same physical time as me. This is really hard to explain. He could shoot into a 3D existence himself, yes, but to accompany me, our dimensions are so it would almost suffocate him to come down here, if that makes sense. If he went through a starseed system, sure, but then he would have his spirit guide. Does that make sense? The 12th dimension is kind of where I think we should all strive to be until we know what comes after that, right? So basically we're learning through an ascension. To sum this up, ascension is really learning lessons, working through life, working through issues, learning how to remain positive, learning how to keep the faith, understanding there's no such thing as death, understanding that everything cycles, everything is energy, nothing is out to get you. You have full control over everything that you want. Free will, especially in the third dimension, do you have free will? You came down here with hey, I'm gonna have a fucked up life so I can learn, and you could say, no, I'm not, I'm gonna sit on my ass and eat chips. That's fine, you can do whatever you want. Just know you'll incarnate again. But ascension is basically just working back to nirvana, my guys. It's working back to heaven. It's working back to your soul. You know what I mean? Climbing back up that ladder. And doing so is working through different dimensions, working through your hardships, realizing that there's so much more that we don't even have any sort of clue about yet. What is that quote? All I know is I know nothing at all. That's how Ascension works, my friends. We're going to talk about past lives and Akashic records. We are going to talk about spirit guides, how that works, Gosh, you guys, there's so much I want to talk to you about. Let me read kind of my topics off to you. And before we go, I was going to tell you to, instead of making these just videos on my Patreon, I might do these as live classes. So I would talk a little bit about the topic, and then I would throw it open to you guys for questions, and have it in group sessions. So if somebody's asking a question that maybe you didn't think of, you can piggyback off that and kind of have maybe like weekly sessions. So let me know in the comments if that's something you're interested in. But spiritual awakening versus a midlife crisis, twin flames, star seeds, mediumship, rescue mediumship, which we touched on a little bit today, what the Star Council of Light is, religion, God, Jesus, Sananda complex, numerology, psychic gifts, how to enhance them, energy and light, dark versus evil, energy healing. I can teach you guys how to do energy healing and what it means. The Lyran War, which was a starseed planet that no longer exists, is exhibiting the same sort of issues that Earth is exhibiting right now. Earth is in a crisis, apart from y'all just ascending. There's a war going on, so we're going to talk about that. How to meditate, how to heal, how to connect to your spirit guides, crystals, how to work with them, divination tools, chakras, inner child healing. I mean, the list goes on and on. So hopefully you enjoyed this Coffee with Kacie on Ascension, and